One of the greatest joys of the spiritual life is a life of contemplative prayer. Sometimes people have the question, am I called to be a contemplative? Isn't this something just for monks or nuns and religious, in the monasteries and the convents? And the answer is, every person in the world is called to be a contemplative. Every person in the world is called to deep intimacy with Jesus Christ, and that intimacy is most vividly experienced in contemplative prayer, in silence and solitudes. The great 20th century Dominican theologian, Father Reginald Garrigou-Lagrange, said that the call of contemplation, the contemplative life, it is for everyone because it represents the universal call of holiness. And we see it so prominently in the Gospels. We see it in the story of Jesus. Jesus goes up on the mountain, the experience of the transfiguration, his face transfigured with lights. We see his divinity revealed. We see how throughout the Gospels he spends time in silence and solitude, in isolated places, in prayer. St. Francis of Assisi, same thing. Spent so much time in silence and solitude. Yes, he was the charismatic founder. Yes, he had this evangelistic zeal. Yes, people were deeply attracted to him. But that attraction, it came from the interior depths of his contemplative life, his relationship with Jesus Christ that allowed them to see Christ in him. It wasn't Francis that they were attracted to. It was God within, who emanates from his presence. They said that if you count how much time Francis spent in contemplative prayer in silence and solitude, it will be about 7 months in a year. Hermitages, isolated churches, the woods, the forests, places where he could recollect with God, places where he can encounter the silence. Who did Jesus meet on the mountain? The prophet Elijah and Moses. Both of them had mountaintop experiences, which at the mountain it's a symbol of spiritual ascent. And notice how for Elijah in 1 Kings, God says to him, go up on the mountain and you will meet me, you will encounter me. And notice how, the storm passes and God was not in the storm. The fire and God was not in the fire. Finally, he encountered the Lord in the still, small voice, meaning in the silence, in contemplative silence, he encountered God's. Moses, Mount Sinai, encounters the presence of God, spent a long time praying and fasting on top of the mountain, and with that he received the wisdom of God, the 10 Commandments, because when we spend time in contemplation, the Lord influences our intellects. The Lord touches our hearts. The Lord transforms us within. You want to be more charitable? You want to be more loving? You want to love people who you struggle to love? Spend time in silence and prayer. Because those times, they work on your hearts. You begin living with the heart of Jesus. You begin living with the heart of Mother Mary. You begin realizing that the Spirit of God is leading you. And of course, not everyone has the advantage of the religious like me, who has the Blessed Sacrament in his home, who has a chapel. But we all can create sacred space in our homes. We all can have a pustynia. Pustynia, great Russian word used prominently by the great Catholic Russian writer Catherine Dorothy. She started the Madonna houses, these retreat houses, where people could go for a pustynia experience, a desert experience. And part of it is you go into a room, a simple room, where there is a table and a chair, and on the table there is a crucifix and Bible. And of course you have a bed and bread and water for 24 hours. And the point is that you create this simple, sacred space. At that table, it's like an altar. It's a space where you go to pray. It's a space where you go to experience and encounter the presence of God. And a lot of people will say, well, Father, I don't have time for this. I have a lot of work, family obligations, school, and so on. But dear brothers and sisters, realize there's 24 hours in a day, and the Lord Jesus is asking only for one out of those 24. He says to the apostles in Gethsemane, could you not watch with me just 1 hour? It's not time that we lack. It's love. Because we always make time for that which we love. When we say to Jesus, I don't have time to spend with you today, we're saying your crucifixion wasn't that important to me. Your life wasn't that important to me. And that's the tragedy. That's the tragedy when we take the most important person that ever lived and the most important event at Calvary and treat it like it means nothing. When you spend that daily effort in prayer, you will experience the joy of His presence. You will experience a transformation of life beyond the technological addictions that we get stuck on, beyond the false tabernacles that we get glued to. We spend time with the Lord, and when we do, He transforms us. We begin to become the human beings that we are called to become, live out our vocations. So dear brother and sister, do not be afraid of the mountaintop experience, of the pustinya, of the deserts, but realize that it is a loving invitation from Jesus and from Mother Mary for great intimacy with them, great love with them, which comes through the silence. May God bless you.